Hey there, I'm Dan Martell, serial entrepreneur, investor, and creator of SaaS Academy. In this episode, I'm gonna teach you how to find your North Star metric. I'm gonna deconstruct it, explain it, share some of the top SaaS companies, examples, and help you figure it out. And be sure to stay to the end where I'm gonna share with you an exclusive resource called the Precision Scorecard. So what you do is you take your North Star metric and you stick it in the Precision Scorecard playbook to hold your whole team accountable to moving it up into the right. Let's get into it. So I first learned this strategy from my buddy, Sean Ellis. Sean is the creator of the term growth hackers and created the concept of the North Star metric. He made it popular through a framework he teaches called the high tempo testing. Now, why do I think it's so powerful? When I was building my company, Clarity, the team and I, we had raised 1.6 million in funding. We were struggling to find our rhythm from a product development point of view, from a monetization point of view, from a growth point of view. And I remember calling Sean, I was down in LA about to go on This Week in Startups with Jason Calacanis. If you haven't seen, that's a very old episode, but I was about to go on to talk about our previous acquisition, Flowtown. I remember I was standing in the parking lot. Renee was there, my wife, fiance at the time, and I was talking to Sean and I was like, dude, I'm trying to figure out like, what do we focus on? We're building a marketplace. If you've ever done a marketplace, it's crazy. It's like having twins at the same time. And he explained to me, he says, dude, you need to figure out what your North Star metric is. You need to figure out the metric that you know that if you move up and make better, that your customers are getting value and the business is getting value. So I went back to the team, sat down, did a strategy planning session, whiteboarded a bunch of different options. And for us, we came up with a metric called EDS, Expert Driven Signups. Why? Why did we go through that framework? Here's the deal. We knew we needed to drive growth in signups, but we couldn't do it through paid acquisition because of the percentage we were taking in the marketplace didn't support paid channels. So what we decided is try to figure out strategies that would get the experts when they signed up to promote their own profile, no different than Airbnb would do for like people that had listings. And we literally just focus on that number, and every week, every 2-week sprint would just get better at it and better at it and better. And then that's when the flywheel started to take off, and the amount of experiments that we went through was crazy. But the part that made it easy is that we had that one metric to focus on. So I want to share with you kind of like 4 areas to look at to figure out your North Star metric today. So number 1, what's the definition of a North Star metric? Here's the way I think about it. It is a number that tells you that not only your customers are getting value, but the business is getting value. And it is usually a leading indicator to kind of revenue growth. So it's some kind of activity that's happening in your product that's specific to you that tells you that the customers are getting value and you should derive value through the form of revenue if it's working out. Okay, so that's the definition for me of a North Star metric. Number 2, focus on the game. So there's 3 games, and when I say games, it's kind of like every business has a different game they're playing. They're either playing one of these 3. They're playing an attention game. So this would be like a Facebook or a Netflix, so attention. They're a transactional game. So this is like an Amazon or some kind of e-commerce company like Shopify. On the transaction side, Shopify is probably not the best idea, but you get the picture. So it's kind of like transactional commerce. And then third would be on productivity. The productivity game is most software as a service company, SaaS companies. So this is like a Trello, Asana, Salesforce, etc. You get the picture, Slack, Dropbox, anything that is around productivity. And first, you need to figure out what game you're playing in. So if you're watching this, you're a software as a service company, a SaaS company, you are focused on productivity. Number 3, examples. I want to share a few examples to get you thinking through how this works. So number 1, Airbnb, their North Star metric is nights booked. Why? Because as a marketplace, and that's why I focus on expert-driven signups, if people are booking nights at Airbnb, their host and the people searching for places to stay are meeting each other. So that means if that number is nights booked, every night goes up, it means that the supply is available and the people are finding that supply. Facebook, daily active users. Okay, so on a daily basis, what percent of their customer base were active? So if they add a new feature, it's all about increasing the activation, getting them back or getting them more engaged, etc. So daily active users for Facebook because they monetize through ads. The other one would be Quora. Quora is the number of questions answered by users. So the number of questions users answer. So that is their North Star metric. Slate, which is a content site, is total number of engaged time or total engaged time. That tells them that people are consuming and they can monetize through ads. Salesforce, average record created per account. You know, they want to make sure that people are using the product. So creating a record in the system from the accounts they have. So what percent of the, or how many records are being created per account. And Adobe, which sells cloud software, they would just do the number of engaged cloud subscriptions. So how many people are active or engaged as a subscription owner. And that's like at a high level really easy for you to figure out. It's what's the thing that you know your successful customers are achieving within your product, and you want to look at it as a percent of your install base typically, so that you can figure out if that number is going up and to the right. And that's why it's a North Star metric. It is that focus of everybody being able to move it forward. That's another aspect of North Star metric, is can everybody in the company influence that number? If the answer is yes, it's a good one. But let's dive into the formula specifically. Number 4, the formula. So the formula for the North Star metric is a few things. Number 1 is your customer getting value? If I measure this, does it tell me that my customer is getting value? So that's the first place I would start to look. Within that, I want to know that it's a leading indicator to revenue. So if I measure this, are people that do this behavior, this data point I'm going to measure, will it lead to revenue? And number 3, is it specific to my business? That's why it requires some level of creativity to customize your North Star metric, because you can't just swipe somebody else's, because it doesn't give the full picture of your specific product. So those are the 3 things I would ask you. Is it something that measures value that your customer's getting it? Is it a leading indicator to revenue? And is it specific to your product? So ratios, metrics, etc. are great North Star metrics. For example, I'll give you a great example from my friend Evan, who works in, he leads the service and parts department at the local Volkswagen dealership. And one of their North Star metrics is called the absorption rate. An absorption rate is the percent of overhead covered by parts and services, meaning that if they have a $10 million overhead to run their Volkswagen dealership, what percent? Is it 100%, 80%, 110% of the revenue from service and parts alone covers the overhead of the building? That's just their North Star metric. So everybody focuses on ensuring that that is at least 100%. 120 is like really good, I guess. But that is an example of something very specific to their industry that they can measure. So you're gonna need to figure it out for yourself. So quick recap, 4 things. Number 1, the definition of North Star metric. Number 2, the games, focus on the game that you're playing. Number 3, examples. And number 4, formula. As I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, I want to share with you an exclusive resource called the Precision Scorecard. It's the framework I use to grow all of my companies, to keep everybody focused, measure the weekly activity to the monthly, to the quarterly, to the annual, to make sure that we hit our goals. No excuses, red, green, or yellow. It's a very simple framework. You can click the link to download not only the 5 strategies that implement it, but I even give you the template so that you can literally look at the 6 core functions of a software company and implement the Precision Scorecard for your business. So click the link below to grab your copy. And if you like this video, be sure to smash the subscribe button, like the video, and if there's anybody that you care about, you think it could serve, feel free to share it with them directly. And as per usual, I want to challenge you to live a bigger life and a bigger business, and I'll see you next Monday. What's up with my audio testing? Sweetness.